no chair present, so we are going to hold tight until the chair shows up. No vice chair either.
Should we start party music now, or are we not allowed to do that?
I like your how you think. Perhaps we could use this time to for me to read the meeting script.
Sure.
And yeah, hang on, I'll just pull that up.
Just like riding a bike.
Remote meeting script. Okay. What, you think I did it from by heart? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the October 25th meeting of the Zoning Advisory Committee. I'm Mary Larson Marlowe. I have no title right now, but we'll do a roll call later. This open meeting of the Zoning Advisory Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with the recently signed an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension until April 1st, 2022 of the remote meeting provisions of the governor's March 12, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The new law has two major parts. First, the new law allows public bodies to continue providing live, adequate alternative means of public access to the deliberations of the public body instead of holding meetings in a place that is open and physically accessible to the public. Adequate alternative means may include, without limitation, providing access through telephone, internet, or satellite-enabled audio or video conferencing, or any other technology that enables the public to clearly follow the proceedings of the public body in real time. Second, the new law authorizes all members of a public body to continue participating in meetings remotely. The open meeting law's requirement that a quorum of the body and the chair be physically present at the meeting location remains suspended. For this meeting, the Zoning Advisory Committee is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted in the town's web meeting calendar and the ZAC agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting may also be broadcast by HCAM through one of its many channels or platforms. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you. And take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Have we gotten any other people here? Okay, let's do a roll call. Do we have more people? We have.
So Curtis is here now. So
Curtis is here. So
I was going to ask.
And Sundar. I yield the floor.
I checked my email. Okay, was I supposed to do something? And I realized, no, I wasn't supposed to do anything. I was like, oh God, what happened?
I have been trying to get my computer to start for about the last hour. So,
oh my goodness. Okay, so I will yield the floor.
On my tablet, unless my, I might
and
even be able to.
Curtis, we already went through the remote meeting script, so you can just do a roll call for all the members, okay?
Okay, unfortunately, I can't see the whole screen. I'm going to try to get my actual computer going here. I'm going to let's see if I have. I hope I don't wind up with some kind of major feedback if they both try to start at the same time. But let's see here. John Catino? Nope.
Nope.
Yeah, I can't get that window out of the way. Ted Barker-Hook?
Ted's here.
Elise? No, Elise?
Here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Elise? Ron?
Ron is here.
Sundar?
Sundar Sivaraman present.
Madhu?
Madhu present.
Mary?
Mary
Saw
Larson
you.
Marlowe present.
Rachel? Rachel with us?
I didn't see her.
Okay, so John and Rachel aren't in attendance. We do have a quorum, right?
Yeah.
I guess I will continue on the tablet until something happens on my computer here. I guess the first thing on our agenda is the public forum. Unfortunately, I can't see if there are people in here. John, can you identify?
There are a few people that are not board members. So usually how this works is we just ask them if they have any input for the public forum to raise their hand, and then we can call on them.
Okay. I'm hoping you can control that from your side.
Yep. So at this time is the public forum that was advertised. So if any of the non-board members or board members have any input that they'd like to share with the zoning advisory committee, now is the time. Okay.
Not, this may be a real short meeting. Hey, I think my computer's going. I'm gonna mute this one for a second and see if I can get on the other one. Hold on a second.
There you are, Curtis.
And Curtis,
I've got to leave on the tablet, so I quit getting that feedback. Okay. Is it working?
Yep.
Yes.
seems to be.
Let's hope it continues that way. And I've got the wrong glasses on. It's been one of those days. So we didn't have any public forum hands raised, or?
Nope, it does not appear that any members of the public have anything to share.
Anyone on Zach have anything to raise? If not, I guess we will close the public forum, or should we wait a minute or two, or?
So through the chair, I don't think we need to close the forum. It was an agenda item, not a public hearing or anything like that. So we could just move on, and then if somebody shows up later and they would like to share, then we can just, I guess, go back to agenda item 1.
Okay.
Through the chair, Curtis.
Yes, Ted.
I don't know if I need to raise this today, but maybe I do. It's still my hope, while it's not now a front burner issue, that we can return to talking about tree protection bylaws and more thoughtfully explore that during this term. But maybe we're already planning to do that. I don't know.
I think we're planning on it. We just are not going to try to do anything for the town meeting this year, or the 2022 town meeting. It would be pushing it a little too hard. So I think what we were going to try to do is have that an agenda item probably after we get our town meeting warrant all figured out.
Okay.
But yes, that will be an item. Okay. Make this agenda big enough that I can actually read it. I guess our next agenda item is draft zoning articles. Unfortunately, with my computer issues, I haven't had a chance to even take a look at them. John, can you present what we're looking at and kind of review?
All right. So I apologize. I am also having computer, not issues, but my normal computer is being repaired. So I have this loaner computer and none of the settings work the way that I want them to. So I apologize if the display is off and I need to change some settings. So this is the first item that I am proposing for a zoning amendment, and it is to explicitly state that one principal use per lot is allowed in the zoning bylaw. So let me kind of give you some background on why we
Sure.
came to this one. So most towns have this provision in the very beginning of their zoning bylaw. We do not. And then this is related to another proposed zoning amendment because a resident discussed the potential for putting two single-family houses on a single lot. And we always said it wasn't allowed. Looked at the zoning, there's nothing explicitly stating that it wasn't allowed. And then, so reading the uses in the zoning bylaw, it says uses allowed by right, single-family dwellings, period, plural.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do here is just clean that up a little bit. That's why we're calling it a housekeeping article. Well, this one's not a housekeeping article. The other one is. But this basically inserts at the beginning in general applicability that no lot may be used for more than one principal use except as otherwise specifically allowed by this zoning bylaw. It should be these zoning bylaws. I will make that change. So in certain places, you can have multiple principal uses on a single lot, but it's explicitly called out in the zoning in those places. So in order to not have two single family houses on a single lot or two warehouses on a single lot, unless explicitly allowed, this would accomplish that. And then we'll also define principal use because only accessory use is defined in the zoning, and principal use we're defining as the primary or main use of land, building, or structure as distinguished from an accessory use, building, or structure. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Can't imagine it's going to be controversial.
Through the chair, question for John.
I'll open it up to you guys. Yes.
So John, it says here, no lot may be used for more than one principal use. Could you define the term principal use? Because principal use could mean dwelling and multiple dwellings could still be principal use. Are you saying that principal use is one dwelling?
So we've defined it as the primary or main use of a land, building, or structure. So if you have one structure, that's the principal use. That's the principal structure and use on the property. So if you have one single family house, only one single family house can be the principal use and structure. If you have another single family house, it has to meet the definition of accessory use or structure. And that means that it's got to be accessory to the principal use. So you can't have two single family houses with one of them being accessory because the accessory single family house doesn't have any relation to the principal single family house.
Got it. So
So
this
single
isn't
family
standing
use-
on its own. This is being read in conjunction with that structure as in singular. This and this
Yes,
amendment
yes.
together work. Okay.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, if you have a principal use on the lot, let's say it's a bakery, right? You can have accessory uses, a shed for storing the bakery ingredients, but you can't have two bakeries, right? You can't have one operating as a bakery, the Hopkinton Bakery, and then you can have another one as the Hopkinton Bakery 2. Like those are two separate principal uses. So only one of them would be allowed. If they were related and one of them supported the other, then that could be classified as an accessory use, but not a principal use. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Through the chair, I have a question for John.
Yes.
Would this interfere with people's abilities to have a home business? Because wouldn't that be two uses in the same building or structure?
So usually home businesses are considered accessory to the single family use.
Okay.
So the principal use is not the home business. You have the home and then the business is kind of separate from that, but you can't have it as a standalone business, right? If you only had the business, that would be a retail use. That wouldn't be a home business use. So home business use is essentially defined as a business within a home. But if you don't have the home, then it's just a business, which is a completely different use.
Okay,
So just kind of by the definition of it, it's usually treated as an accessory use to the home, which is the principal
Okay.
use.
all right, that makes sense.
Through the chair, question for John.
Yes.
So I get what you're saying, John, completely. And I think that the assumption is if you're running a psychologist office out of your house, if you move, your office is probably moving. That makes it an accessory use. But I wonder if it wouldn't help us to see the definition of accessory use as well, as long as we're looking at the definition of principal use.
Okay, I'm going to have to take down this and I'll share the zoning bylaw. Bear with me. So let's see, I don't have the right kind of zoom, so I'll try to zoom in like this.
Yeah, and I guess through the chair, if I may, yeah, that makes sense if you're running your psychiatry office out of the basement of your house. Yeah, okay.
There it is.
Thank you, John.
Oh, through the chair, just sorry, I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask. So this doesn't let me sublet my accessory unit to somebody else to run a psychology office, right? A psychiatrist office, correct?
This does not affect that. If that's allowed or not, this would not affect that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so you'd have to, so in that case, you'd have to, I'd have to take a look at the definition of home office and make sure that it's the homeowner that has the home office and it's not a subletting type situation.
Okay.
Usually that's not, I don't think allowed, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But this would really just prohibit multiple principal uses on a single lot, which is how we've been going about it. It just is memorializing it into the zoning bylaw.
Clarification is
Chair?
always good.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So I agree with this change. I think it prevents unintended consequences of having some of the wording ambiguous, even if those occurrences have not happened thus far. So yeah, I think that I'd support this. Absolutely.
Any other comments? What is our next step to entertain a motion to
recommend
recommend
this amendment to the planning board?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to recommend this amendment to the planning board.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay,
John, welcome.
Welcome, John. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
I guess we need to do a roll call.
Yes.
Ted,
Aye.
Mary,
Mary Larson Marlowe, aye.
John,
Yes.
Sundar,
Sundar Sivaraman, yes.
Elise,
Elise Mihailovsky, yes.
Ron,
Ron Forsey, yes.
Madhu,
Madhu present.
You.
okay. Curtis.
Through the chair,
Yes, yes.
a present vote is an abstention.
Oh, God, yes. Okay. Let's say yes then. I thought I was say something else.
Abstaining too. That's wow. She's abstaining on this one.
Oh, God,
Bold move.
no.
Okay, so it's unanimous. It will go on to the planning board now. Next one is housekeeping plural uses.
Yep. All right, so this one's probably the longest one that we've got. So going through this section, or really all of these sections, the listing of uses within the different districts, we noticed that some of them were singular, some of them were plural. And we want them all to be consistent, and then we all want them to be singular where they're appropriately singular. So in certain situations, we have accessory uses like K down here. You can have multiple accessory uses on a lot. We're looking at really the principal uses being singular, where they fit. We left municipal uses as plural because we wanted the town to have leeway to do multiple municipal uses on a single lot. For example, for like the Fruit Street lot, if there's going to be, multiple principal uses there, we didn't want to really impede the town from doing that, because town type stuff is usually going to be approved by town meeting at some level anyway. So it's still going to have a townwide review. So basically all we did was go through here, change the plurals to singulars, did some grammatical changes. Everything is struck through and bolded. The bold is the new, the strike through and bold is what's being removed. I could go through here and highlight every single one of them if you want right now, but I feel like that would be tedious. So I'll leave it up to the committee to decide.
Can we go through just a couple of examples just so that the theme becomes clear?
Sure. So I think the biggest one, and the one that we started everything with, is this single family dwellings. So it'll say single family dwelling, period, just one. Place of worship and other religious use, public school, public library, or museum. Shouldn't say and, because you don't want public library and museum, or maybe you do, but maybe you just want one. Private school.
Sorry, so John, just a minor clarification. So on point B, I completely get the places of worship, meaning changing that to place, but uses still seems to make sense here. That because the religious uses is not talking about the plural of facilities. It's religious use. I mean, I'm just curious if.
So, yeah, I mean, this one's tricky because they're going to probably be able to do whatever they want to do anyway because of the Dover Amendment. But we didn't have really any religious uses other than a place of worship that would be considered a principal use. So if you have an example, I can change it. But we were just saying, if it's not a place of worship, but it's another religious use, a shrine or something like that, that probably would still be considered a place of worship. So yeah, I mean, it was just
okay. I get it. Okay,
it's not. We can make it uses, keep it as plural, but we really couldn't think of any other uses that would fit this definition, so we just made it singular.
Okay.
And then, so a lot of these were very similar.
May I just ask quickly through the chair?
Yes.
Maybe I haven't fully wrapped my head around the one that Sundar brought up. But if you had a traditional church or temple, and you also had a Saturday or Sunday school attached, isn't that uses? Or are you considering the Saturday, Sunday school for kids to be a worship use?
So I think the Saturday, Sunday school for kids would be an accessory use.
Okay.
Because the church or place of worship would be the principal use, and the Sunday school would be an accessory use to that church. If you had the Sunday school on a different parcel or a different lot, that would be the principal use. And maybe a playground associated with it, and that could be an accessory use.
Okay.
although playground would not be religious use. I don't want to nitpick, but it clearly says religious uses. So you almost want to, by extension, say anything which is worship is already a religious use. So the term religious use is actually, in my opinion, not required there, because anything that is associated with the anyway, I'm not nitpicking.
We didn't want to box ourselves in, so we kind of
okay.
just left that
Okay.
there. That was in
Got
there
it.
for a reason.
Got
We
it.
just want to leave it in there in case
Okay.
something came up, but just make it singular.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was pretty easy with the residential districts
Yep.
because a lot of them were the same thing as the RA district. So we just kind of copied that over. So let's get into like the industrial district because they'll have different ones. So like industrial A changed research and development, research center and laboratory, professional medical office. And then this one is manufacturing or assembly or processing plant. But then we have these as plural because those are the types of plants they could be. So those don't necessarily need to be singular because you're not going to do food and kindred product. You'll do a plant for food and kindred products. So that's still going to stay as plural because the plant is the one use. But then here you can see these were already singular.
Yep.
So we had an inconsistency in the zoning anyway that we needed to fix. So we're just making everything singular. And this kind of tells me the intent was for these things to be singular uses. They just, whoever wrote it wrote it as plural, thinking it was going to be like the RA district is supposed to allow single family dwellings, the district as a whole, not a parcel on the district.
So sorry, through the chair, just one small nitpick once again. Number 4 in that, it says warehousing for distribution. Warehousing is, in my opinion, not, so it's not the name of a structure, it's the purpose. So this ideally should have been called warehouse or warehouses for distribution, yet it says warehousing. So
Yep.
there is no plural on this. I mean, there is no warehousings. I'm just saying that this technically leaves this still ambiguous. I mean, not that anybody's going to take advantage.
Yep.
Would you agree?
So the good thing is if the previous amendment passes, maintaining only one singular use per lot, this would be one warehouse.
Got it.
per
Got
lot.
it. Okay.
However, I think that makes sense, and I can make that change if you guys recommend that change.
I think the change just to keep everything consistent makes sense. I think that's a good catch by Sundar.
If I may through the chair, I've got one back on number 2 in the industrial 1B, where it says medical office. Now, I just know that from every medical office building we have in town, there are several different offices, and some of them are even several different companies in there. And that's going to be fine the way we wrote it.
So the use would be the structure, right? If you're in the industrial A district, the structure itself is going to be a medical office building.
Okay.
So like the individual offices within that are not the principal use. The use is an office building.
Okay, great.
If you were to have multiple buildings with offices in them, somebody, brought a trailer in and tried to, or in the middle of the parking lot, built a tiny home that had a foundation and whatnot, that would be an issue. But because they're all in the same building, that building is an office building.
Okay, now if I may also follow up on that one, since you just hit a trigger in me, in the Elmwood School where we had to bring in trailers, is that we're not going to box ourselves in as a town?
So I think that's why I said they had to put a foundation on the tiny house, because I think if it's just a trailer, it's not a structure. So I think that the ones that the modular buildings, but those they actually have a foundation, right? They're a structure. So those could be considered accessory to the school.
Okay, I just don't want to block because I just don't want to.
It's also
Although
they're
the town,
also
you said the town has
municipal
an exception.
uses.
Yeah.
So municipal uses, you could have
Yeah.
multiple municipal uses as well.
Because we don't want to be the first ones to break the rules,
Right.
and we have before.
Through the chair,
Yes.
You mentioned, John, and maybe you're not done. You mentioned there were some grammar changes, and that always interests me. Are you just making the grammar changes because we're going from plural to singular in places?
Yeah, and most of them are just commas,
Yeah. Okay.
that kind of a thing. Or, in certain places it said and changed it to or.
Okay.
Those small types of things.
All right.
Any other comments? I think is just a housekeeping item. Stay consistent. I wouldn't have any issue with it. If there aren't any other comments, I would entertain a motion to send this on to the planning board for approval.
Mary Larson Marlowe, so moved.
Sundar seconded.
Okay. We'll do a roll call. Unfortunately, I don't have the whole everybody on screen. Make sure I don't forget anybody here. Ted?
Ted, aye.
Sundar?
Sundar Sivaraman, yes.
Mary?
Mary Larson Marlowe, aye.
Ron?
Ron, yes.
Madhu?
Madhumita Chandrasekhar, yes.
Sundar?
Oh, I already said yes.
Oh, Elise? Everything changed when he quit sharing. Elise?
Elise, yes.
John?
Yes.
And Curtis is a yes. Is that everybody? Sounds like that's unanimous. C is parking for industrial and science uses.
All right, so these are the changes that we talked about at the last meeting. So this one was a little bit easier. I highlighted the changes so you can see them. This is not how it would go before town meeting, but it's just a little bit more informational because this one was a trickier one with the way that it was set up in the document. But this reflects the changes that Zach recommended at the last meeting. So one of them being we had, consistency issue, not having space after each number. So we added space and then changing the proposed parking for certain areas and creating a new use of laboratory research and development and industrial.
Through the chair.
Yes, did.
John, can we see page 1 really quickly again, please? I just wonder, and maybe this is completely unnecessary, where it says at the top in the heading, type of use, number of spaces, does it need to say parking spaces or is that completely understood? Like, I don't think every entry needs, well, but then again, this isn't the bylaw anyway. This is just to make it clear. So maybe it doesn't matter.
So through the chair, the section is 210-124 off-street parking.
Yep.
If that's clear enough. This is how it is right now, so I just didn't change it, but we could always add number of parking spaces.
I don't know if it's necessary. It struck me glancing at it. When I see 1 space per 3 dogs, I just thought, well, wonder what a space is. And it's not quite defined, but I think you'd have to be pretty foolish to not get what's going on. I didn't know if it would be extra careful to put number of parking spaces before we list all of those.
Through the chair, I would support changing the heading to number of parking spaces.
Right, that's what I'm saying too. Not in every entry.
Exactly.
There be any objection from anyone?
For idiot proofing.
So through the chair,
Yes.
would you recommend taking out the space in each entry or just adding the number of parking spaces?
Oh, that's interesting. I think if it says number of parking spaces, then one for every 10 children
Exactly.
works, I think.
That probably was the original intent, right?
We don't know because some of them did say 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Some
some
of
had
them-
space and some just had a number, so we kind of as a housekeeping.
I'm not opposed to, I think all of it is pretty nitpicky, but for idiot proofing, I think putting number of parking spaces at the top makes sense. Whether we keep space below or not, I don't know. I don't think it makes much of a difference. I don't think highlighting space makes it harder to pass a town meeting for each one of those. I don't think we're wasting a lot of paper by having space every time. But I like Mary's phrase of idiot proofing. Up at the very top, I think number of parking spaces, just to make it clear to every third grader out there what we're talking about.
Sounds like a good idea.
By the way, this is through the chair. This is a very curiosity question. Is the term parking space defined as this kind of dimension in any other document?
I seem to remember that it is, but maybe John's pulling it up, that it's actually defined. It needs to be this by this many feet.
Yeah, I've seen that somewhere.
Yeah, it's not there, but I swear I've seen some measurement of what a parking space is.
Isn't that for main streets?
Oh, here we go. Each parking space shall consist of a rectangle of the following minimum dimensions.
Ah,
There we go.
okay, thank you.
I knew it had to be in there somewhere because
I know.
So anyway, I guess if I were writing it, I would put number of parking spaces and I would leave space for every single one because I don't see any reason not to. And it makes it absolutely clear to every moron out there what we're talking about.
okay. Any other comments? I think we're reflecting what the economic the recommendations from the Chamber of Commerce.
That's the way I see it. Thank you, Curtis.
Okay.
Yeah, through the chair, Curtis, that was gonna be my question, because that was something they were speaking about, is that in order to lease some of that laboratory research and development space, since so many people are now working from home, that they needed it reduced so that they could lease it out because of the number of cars that actually go in there.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I believe last time we were also talking about perhaps reducing it further for the laboratory, for a warehouse and general office. Is there any interest in pursuing that discussion further?
And I would say, I was going to say the same thing. I don't remember the numbers we discussed, but I think we wanted to make it even more lenient than the chamber asked for. And I don't know if the numbers in front of us reflect the more leniency or if that's exactly what the original proposal was.
John, what did you base this on? Was this from the original proposal?
This was from the notes that Curtis took at the meeting. I'll pin it on Curtis.
So through the chair, could I make a, I don't know whether a motion or whatever, can we table this section of it temporarily until we can get some more feedback from the Economic Development Council of the Chamber, just to
No,
make sure?
they have already given us their recommendation.
Yeah,
John.
so I just
Already
pulled it
had
up.
that.
Oh, okay,
Just
but
pulled it up.
to Tim's point, since we're changing it now, is there something we can do to, because we have a lot of open space up there right now. And a lot of people are staying home, and I just want to make sure that that stuff is rentable.
So if I may, Curtis, do you remember if the numbers you passed along to John reflect our push for even more leniency or not?
No, I don't.
So I can tell you right now. So they had warehouse
At 1 per 1,200.
1 per 1,200, and we did 1 per 2,000. So more lenient
so
than what they
Okay.
recommended.
Yeah.
R&D.
1 per 800.
1 per 800. So that's the same. Life sciences. I think we included in here.
Yeah, we did.
That was 2 per 1,000. So they are basically saying 1 per 500, and this is 1 per 800. So we would be more strict. And then office, they recommended staying the same.
No, we're less strict.
We're
1
less
for
strict.
800 is less strict than 1
Right,
for
yes.
500.
Correct.
So good. I'm in favor of this. I think that in the end, I with your help, I convinced myself that we can be even less strict than they asked us to be. And I'd still be up for making it even more lenient, but I'm happy with this.
Through the chair,
Yes.
I would propose an amendment to change the laboratory research and development industrial uses to 1 space per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area.
I concur.
Through the chair, I'm on board with that too, after thinking it through last time.
800 is just such a weird number.
It is.
It's be hard to do the math.
Are there any objections to that?
I say 1 for every 1,246 square feet. No, I am completely on board with changing that to 1,000. I'm fine with that.
Okay, so if we make a motion, it will include adding parking to the number of spaces heading and changing laboratory research and development and industrial uses to be 1 per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay.
So are we voting at this point just on those changes and then we vote a second time to recommend it to planning board, or can we do it all in one, John?
I think you could do it all in one. I mean,
Okay.
This is just a recommendation, so you don't have to vote to change
Okay, gotcha.
proposal. You can just vote to, basically I've got it I've got it written as John Catino moved to recommend the amendment with the proposed change to the planning board.
Got
So
it.
that's
Okay,
what you want,
perfect.
that's
Thank
fine.
you.
Yeah, so those 2 changes will be included in what we send to the planning board.
Cool.
Okay, we will vote. John,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Elise,
Yes.
Sundar,
Sundar Suraman, yes.
Madhu.
Yes.
Somebody scrolled off the screen. Elise, have I asked you already?
You already asked me, but yes.
Me,
Mary,
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Ted,
That is a yes.
Curtis is a yes. Have I left anybody out? If not, it sounds like we're unanimous to send this on to planning board.
We are killing it tonight.
All that time we spent on the public forum, it's amazing we've got this. Okay, the dimensional table.
So dimensional table, it's basically I've seen this done this way in other towns. We don't have to do it this way, but it's just a little bit easier since it's a different format than the zoning bylaw. They basically insert it as an appendix at the end. So I would propose we insert it as Appendix B, Appendix A being the land use table, which I have not finished yet because it is a much bigger beast than this one. But I will hopefully get that to you either next meeting or the meeting after. But this would be Appendix B, and it would just consist of this. I apologize for the outlining. Something happened. I could not fix it. Something happened between the PDFing of a Google Sheets document.
Through the chair.
Yes.
First of all, I think GFA needs to be defined at the bottom, because I still, to this moment, cannot figure out what it is.
Gross floor area.
Okay, there you go. And professional office, right next to professional office, there's an asterisk before 4, and there's no asterisk on the form anyplace, so I don't know what it refers to.
So it's the asterisk is just to call your attention to that statement for an entire development site. The P district applies to the entire development site because it's a different type of district than all the other districts. That is in the P district language.
I still don't understand what it means. What do you mean by that?
So the P
all-
district is essentially the Liberty Mutual site. That's it.
Yeah, I know
the
that.
area of the P district. And let me pull it up. Sorry, my kids are trying to break in.
So you're saying that the requirements do not apply to individual lots. They apply
They
to the entire
do.
development site.
They do, because that site is the entire development site. The
But-
P district is a very unique thing.
But we've divided it into 2 lots.
Right. So,
So-
I know. So
Now what?
but I can't change the zoning to reflect what's on the ground right now until we change it at town meeting. So I'm only changing the land use dimensional table to reflect what's in the zoning.
Okay.
And so you've got the following size and setback for the development area. And then you can do minimum lot area for individual lots within the development site is none. So all of these things are from this. So all the dimensional requirements are from the development site as a whole, not from the individual lots that may be created within the development site.
Okay. So that it makes sense what that means. For this table, I think that the asterisk needs to be taken out and maybe put it in parentheses, that professional office, and then put it on the next line down for the entire development site. Or you could say the requirements are for entire development site. I don't know. But having the asterisks not refer to anything is just confusing.
I agree with that. The asterisk is a specific punctuation mark that has a specific purpose. It says, look down there to see what I'm talking about.
I mean, I could
I
do
do
it as a footnote, but I feel like that would be not necessary. Just keep it in that
Right.
row.
And I think that maybe I agree with Mary, put it in parentheses, and then it looks a little funny to have back-to-back parentheses with the letter P followed by a comment in parentheses. But being a humanities teacher who deals with writing all the time, I love these chats.
It's something I do a lot too, editing in my line of work. By the way, I absolutely love this table.
As someone who looked at a lot of these tables, it's nice to have this when you're trying to figure out what you can do with a particular site.
Mhm.
I've had a lot of developers come in not knowing exactly what they want to do. What can I do on this site? Well, go into this instead of having to dig through the entire code is very handy. And the use table also, which will be coming in the future.
So through the chair, question for Mary.
Mhm.
Would you want GFA to be defined below the table?
Yes.
Through the chair. if we did that, we could have two explanations down there since we're already adding one, and then we could have the asterisk stay with the explanation underneath for the professional office, because we're already adding a note underneath the table anyway.
Are definitions defined somewhere else in the,
Don't know if GFA is defined in the zoning.
But really for a table, the definitions should be underneath that table anyhow, so.
Yeah, so it's defined as gross floor area, but not GFA.
maybe our next thing should be adding GFA in parentheses after gross floor area.
The only other thing, and I don't think it's possible to do it in the space available, but on tables like this in general, I would have loved to see the reference back to which chapter in the bylaws each one refers to. But, you know, I really don't see a way to make that happen on this table.
You could add a line below. So, I mean, it would be tricky for these three because they're single lines, but you could always just in parentheses below it reference chapter 210 dash whatever the section is.
Could you not make one reference to, through the chair, could you not make one reference to each, all of them will have the common reference and a hyperlink to, isn't this one section of the bylaws? I mean, could they all not go to one start of the document, and then there you could actually see agriculture, residence B, business, and all those things. Meaning, let's say they all start in page number 25 of the document. Could that not be one way of doing it?
Yes. So the hyperlinks are good for some of the users. The hard copy users, obviously, they're not going to be helpful.
Oh,
so
okay.
then putting in, you know, chapter 210 dash blah, 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 will give a reference to the hard copy users to go and flip back to that section without having to click on anything.
Okay.
Through the chair, I like Mary's idea, but I think the beauty of this table is it's uncluttered. And if we add all of the section references, we're cluttering.
I agree.
You can always go back and look up each district if you want more detail, or don't trust this table.
Do you need to have some sort of disclaimer, you know, at the top of the bottom that's basically saying that the bylaw itself is the rule, not this table? You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, that would
Like
actually
if there
be
were
a
any
good idea.
discrepancy there, you know, you have to refer to the bylaw. God forbid if there's a typo in the table.
Through the chair.
Which I'm sure is not, but yes.
Through the chair. If you guys really wanted to put the bylaws, you could just add another column and have the title of the column be bylaw reference. Wouldn't that work?
It just might not fit on the page.
We could, I mean,
I think if we were going to add the reference, I would probably put it in the column. Put it in the descriptor.
you could always make residence lakefront 2 lines, and then you effectively could cut this column in half because this is going to move away. So then it's going to be really downtown business is the longest one. So you could, you know, you'll have space, and there's these margins too. So, I mean, you definitely could fit it.
Because I think, you know, it'd be excellent to still keep it all on one page. I mean, that's the beauty of a table like this, right?
So through the chair, if you guys don't want to vote on this one tonight, I can make several examples showing what it looks like with the references, with a column, that kind of stuff. And then you can choose which one you like best at the next meeting.
It seems like I've seen a lot of them in landscape format too, because
This is in landscape format.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
Through the chair, I like Elisa's idea. And then I'm thinking of the disclaimer that the written bylaw is the true word of law that Mary mentioned. So then I think, well, now we have a column where we can have another footnote. And now we're up to 3 footnotes though. And that's a different kind of clutter. But thinking out loud, if we have the column referencing the section, we could also then have the note that says, that's the real rule, not this table. So have a look.
So I want to reiterate, John, this is fabulous work. I love it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I also hate editing by committee because I often have to grit my teeth when other people are editing my stuff.
No, these are helpful. I appreciate it.
So we'll add the citing of the section to it and then take it up at the next meeting and vote on it then. Does that sound reasonable? I guess.
Yeah, and if John worked
comments?
up 1 or 2 other versions so that we could see 3 different ones, that would be great.
Okay. Any other comments we need to address at this point? Or we'll table this till the next meeting. Then we can look at dimensional tables and use tables.
Well, now I've got to make these changes. I don't know if I'll plan to.
Curtis, through the chair, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you tell me what's left on our agenda? Because I'm at my 8 o'clock scoot out point, but if we're almost done, then I can cling on.
The affordable housing presentation. I think Mary was Mary or Sundar.
Yeah, Sundar and I are going to tag team, I think.
Do you have a guesstimate how long that would be, Mary?
It depends on questions, but it is something that I already gave at the planning board, and you can always just watch the video either way, or just read the slides, and I'll send them to you.
Okay, and I'd love it
That's
if you'd send them
fine.
to me. That would be really nice of you.
Okay.
So through
All
the
right.
chair, this meeting is also recorded. So Ted, you could always just watch this meeting on HCAM.
True. All right, then, everyone, I'm going to jump out and turn back to my schoolwork. It's good to see everybody. Stay healthy.
Thanks.
Thanks. Guess we will table the dimensional table for the time being and move on to item number 3, the affordable housing presentation.
Excellent. John, do you want me to pull it up, or should you pull it up?
I don't think I downloaded it. Actually, did I?
That's okay. I think I can. You just make sure I have that capability.
I'm going to stop my video and eat my supper while we're watching this.
Good idea.
So Mary, I didn't download it. I can if you need me to, but if you
No,
have
that's
it,
okay.
ready,
I will get it. Everybody sit tight for a minute.
Well, you already have it on your computer because you presented that in the PP.
Oh, I know, but I modified it and then I PDF'd
Oh,
it.
yeah.
So, yeah, John gave me a little bit more data and I just modified one of the slides.
Nice.
So, okay, so now I'm going to do share screen and figure out. Okay, there we go. So, okay, there we go. Everybody see affordable housing?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, just so you know, Sundar and I are on a planning board subcommittee on affordable housing. This is not by any means intended to replace or duplicate the currently operating and long-term operating Hopkinton Housing Authority or the Affordable Housing Trust Fund or any of the other activities in town that are already being done for the affordable housing. It was simply one of 3 subcommittees that had been formed for planning board to look at it from a planning board perspective in terms of how can we at planning board contribute to the planning in town related to affordable housing. We just consider this and the other two items to be our top priorities for this year, and so that's why it was formed and what we were doing. So in conjunction with some invited members of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee, we also did a lot of just educating ourselves. So I'm going to give a very, very rapid overview of what the affordable housing landscape is in the country and the state and the town. Okay. So current state of our public housing and our 40B affordable housing, and I'll go into definition of that for those of you who have escaped the 40B chapter thus far in your life. And then talk about affordable versus attainable, potential approaches that we have already been discussing and that we can consider. And then there's some very useful links and glossary terms at the end that we won't go through, but you have, John can send this out to everyone so you have it for reference in the future. All right. So this should not be considered the end all be all, but it just gives you an overview. 40B is Massachusetts state law dealing with affordable housing. But there's a difference between subsidized or state aided public housing in Massachusetts, the 40B, so-called 40B affordable housing, and other federal programs. So under the Massachusetts 40B law, each town must keep at least 10% of their housing stock as affordable, or they will be subject to potential 40B developments that can bypass certain zoning bylaws. That was written that way simply to incentivize communities to keep affordable housing stock. SHI is one of many acronyms that I'll be referring to, subsidized housing inventory, and that is the list that is kept by the state to determine our percent of housing stock that is affordable. To become a resident in the 40B affordable housing, the qualifications are that you have to have less than or equal to 80% of the median income in an area, not the full state, but the area. Again, this is determined by the state. They post these. I assume they revise them periodically. I don't know how often. It's sort of by county, more or less. And so obviously it varies, different areas of the state. This affordable housing under the 40B is not subsidized by the state or federal government. So basically they're not paying to have this housing created. They're not paying to have the people afford to buy it. But it is being set aside and it has to be sold at an affordable rate. So it's basically under rules, but the people who come in to buy it after they qualify through the program, they are paying their own money and their mortgage and whatever that is, for ownership, or for, if it's a rental property, they're paying the rent. So it's not subsidized in any way by the ones under that program. Okay, so, and very quickly, the process is they apply through the state, they can qualify to buy or rent, they indicate location preferences on their application. So they can say, I'd like to live in one of these few communities. I would like to either buy or rent, or either one. Then they go on a wait list for potentially forever. And then there's a lottery of new properties and the resale of existing affordable housing. Both of which they could potentially get into. That's not to say, this certainly that program is in place and it's been operating for I think 50 years. It's been in place, but there's still certainly a lack of housing for low income residents in the state. Okay, the second major category, state-aided public housing. This is owned and administered by a local housing authority. We have a Hopkinton Housing Authority. It is overseen by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. And it includes two categories. One is elderly housing, or elderly or disabled housing, and one is family housing. And the qualifications for the family housing is the same qualifications in terms of low income. It's less than or equal to 80% of area median income. For the elderly or disabled, you have to be greater than 60 years old and or qualify as disabled. In that case, I'm not sure what the payment subsidies are. So I like I said, I did not try to go through and have every single detail in here about affordable housing, because I don't think we're not trying to take over any of the existing programs. I just wanted to give everybody a basic landscape of it. Other programs include rental payment vouchers from state or federal. There's Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. I think that's a federal one. Massachusetts Rental Voucher Program. And these provide funds for rental housing outside of the public housing project. So you can get a rental property within a public housing project, or you can apply for getting some of your rent paid or all of your rent paid, but live outside of the public housing projects in a market level rental unit. Federal public housing programs are overseen by HUD, and many of these are also administered by the local housing authority. So the Hopkinton Housing Authority probably has oversight responsibilities, administration responsibilities for many, many of these programs. They do have varying income qualifications. Some go down to less than or equal to 50% of median income. Some are based not on the area median income, but on different regions. Okay, so. Oh, okay, here we go. So public housing in Hopkinton. This is specifically the state-aided public housing developments, so the ones that were built with state funds. We have 92 dwelling units that are elderly, designated as elderly, for that were built in 1972, and we also have several family units that were state aided for development, and I'm not sure which addresses those are at, but nonetheless we have 6. And our Hopkinton Housing Authority current membership is listed here. So what, was there anything, Sundar, is there anything?
Yeah, Mary, I think it would be important to say that. So the numbers might be a little bit misleading, because we meet or exceed the 10% state mandate. So we probably want to explain how that came about.
Okay. So nothing else on this slide though, right?
Yeah, no, nothing.
Okay. So this simply gives a comparison, some other state-aided public housing in other communities nearby. But this, I'm going to come back to that slide. I'm going to go to this one first. Hopkinton 40B. So Hopkinton has an inventory of 725 affordable housing units. So we're at about just over 14%. 60 of these are single family homes and condominiums so 532 of them are rental units, and 133 other ones are other qualifying units. Some of them, the state aided units that were shown on that other slide as part of that 133. And some of them are part of the Department of, is it DDS, Department Disability Services, John? And what is that? Department of, anyhow.
Yeah, it's Department of Disabled Services, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so that's what the other qualifying units are. Even though those aren't 40B units, the 133, even though those aren't in that, they do count within our total stock of subsidized housing. So it counts toward the 14%. I don't quite understand, but that's government for you. Okay, so the land use department monitors the stock of affordable units. Obviously, we're in good shape here in Hopkinton. The Affordable Housing Trust Committee administers the Hopkinton Fund for Affordable Housing. So in some cases, developers who are building things in town who would have to, per our bylaws, provide one affordable unit per 10 market level units built, they can opt to pay in lieu of building the affordable units. And the payment is, again, set by the state. So it's based on, I think a 2 or 3 bedroom home, single family home, but at the affordable rate. So at the moment, it's set at about $275,000, somewhere in there. The Affordable Housing Trust also, the funds there can be used for repairs on the housing that is in our affordable stock. It can potentially be used for purchase or repurchase. Repurchase of an affordable home from an existing owner who wants to sell. That's one situation. Or a purchase of, some small family home in town that we want to put into our affordable stock. Those are options. And then the current balance is about $1 million, but we have a lot of future payments coming in, in the next 5 to 10 years as people are developing things too as well. Just so you guys know, the most recent town council comment on payment in lieu instead of building the affordable units is that the planning board cannot force developers to build affordable units. The way I have this, at least, and John is looking quizzically at me, but I have notes that say that we heard that from town council, that it's not possible for us to say, nope, you have to build an affordable unit. So that is something we might want to check out as whether or not we have that.
Through the chair, 2 points. The first one on this, that may have been related to the trails because there was an issue with having an age-restricted development and affordable housing within that age-restricted development. You couldn't have an age-restricted development and then provide affordable housing that would essentially prohibit children from living in there.
Got it.
So that's why we had to change the zoning to allow for payment in lieu. The planning board has the ability to make a decision as to whether they're going to require the developer to provide affordable units or make a payment in lieu, because if the developer is building the affordable units, it doesn't have to be off-site. They could build it on their own property. So I'll look into that, but I'm not aware of any prohibition of requiring affordable units to be provided rather than payment in lieu.
Good. Okay.
The second,
I think we should get clarification from town council, because you're right.
Yeah.
It could well be that it was only in relation to that one situation.
Yeah. Statewide, it's a pretty common thing for developers to build the actual units as part of their development. So, I'm not aware of anything in Hopkinton that would change that.
Right.
But then the second point I had is the 14% affordable housing units was based on the 2010 census. We recently got the 2020 census. So we are now down to below 12. I want to say it's 11 and change.
Okay.
But that'll be the case until 2030. So
I will make the change to this as well before we send it around. So if you have the exact percentage, just email me.
Yeah, I'll have to dig it up.
Okay. Okay. So some of the challenges in maintaining our affordable stock. And again, we're just still talking about really serving that low to moderate income group of people through the 40B. The challenges due to the high land and building costs in Hopkinton, it's difficult to find older homes to rehab or land to build affordable units, particularly as, you know, if we were trying to do so just as the town with the funds from the Affordable Housing Trust. Second item is that subdivisions that have less than 10 houses or fewer than 10 houses don't need to provide an affordable unit, because if they have 9 houses, they don't reach that threshold. And if you have a bunch of subdivisions going in that only have 9 houses in them, then we haven't gotten any affordable units to offset and keep us at the 10% level. So, and within a new subdivision, and I'm not, even though John just said in a lot of cases throughout the state, affordable units are built along with the market rate units. But we have often heard from the developers that they find it difficult to provide an affordable unit and still make the whole subdivision financially viable. So, so there's a number of challenges in that way. So I was just going back to the Chapter 40B, just overview. The goal is to make every community's housing at least 10% affordable. The idea with this bylaw is that it allows developers to build affordable housing through streamlined local approval process. We have not had that situation in Hopkinton, from my understanding. We have managed to always keep our affordable stock pretty good, and it's not, you know, right now there's only about 20% in towns of Massachusetts who have achieved a 10% goal. At least this could be old census numbers as well, but that's what I'm going off of. But these are primarily the ones that have achieved it are in the large metro areas or the suburbs like us, because that's where the demand is for more housing. So even though a lot of towns haven't achieved a 10% goal, they're not likely to keep pushing to achieve it or exceed it, because there isn't as much demand there for that level of housing. Okay. So that is where we stand on affordable housing. Affordable being specifically termed as affordable by state and federal definitions, okay? Attainable housing really focuses more on the middle income. Attainable housing aims to promote economic diversity and make Hopkinton a welcoming community for everybody. We have, as the ZAC committee, as well as in planning board and other committees and town meeting and so on, have talked about this a lot over the last years. So, and there's many programs to address the affordable housing targeted at families below 80% of median income. Housing stock statewide is still lacking, so it's not that you know, doesn't need to be beefed up, but there's very few programs that address the families between those that qualify for affordable and those who can afford market rates. There's a big gap in the middle that's missing, and this affordable housing subcommittee recommended to the planning board that we focus on the missing attainable housing through our zoning and through other programs, possibly. And planning board agreed that that's what we should focus on, rather than, you know, trying to do anything more on the affordable side. And that's just like for present day, you know, it's not forever. So our options.
Mary, just for clarity, I think we had discussed that attainable could be all the way from 100% of median income in a particular town or region, all the way up to some higher limit, such as maybe 150%, right? I mean, that band has not been defined, but it as against being in that 80% range, it could go all the way from 100 to maybe 150%, at least to give an example.
Absolutely. And just to use as an example that, people who are currently at the median income for this area would find it hard to buy a new home in Hopkinton. If they have an existing home that they're already a homeowner in Hopkinton, that's one thing, but people at that income level might find it very difficult to buy a new home here, just because of the change in housing rates. Okay, so some of these options, and I've just listed them here rather than going into a lot of detail on them. We've discussed some of them before. Some of them were recommended by the Growth Study Committee, and they've been recommended or discussed in the past by other committees as well. Mixed use developments could be downtown only, could be other specific areas. So the idea being that you could have retail and smaller square footage housing in the same general area, more walkability, that sort of thing. Some of the original plans for Legacy Farms were to have that. So there was a plan to have retail, and that has, been changed. But that's, that's the idea. Multi-unit housing in limited or all areas of town. So that's conversion of single family homes or new construction of multi-unit high density housing. Found a very interesting website that talked about the missing middle housing. And, if you guys are interested at all, or some of you might already know about it. So create local programs with higher income qualification than the state programs currently have. This would require setting up more of an infrastructure for administration of such programs. But that would mean acquiring homes that could be sold through this process and then selling them only to people who qualify in terms of the income qualification. We could potentially solicit home or land donation for people who are leaving town and want to donate their land to the town for a particular use. I mean, this has certainly happened in the past, and we've turned it into open space or trails. Some ideas that have been suggested to me. CPC funds perhaps could be solicited to buy down a mortgage in exchange for a deed restriction. We may not see fruition for, another 10 years, but, if you don't start now, you can't get any of these options going. Some of our challenges, obviously, and we've talked about this, public transit, parking, particularly downtown area. The idea would be great if we could do high density housing, but when you have to have tons of parking spaces for every unit, that makes it more difficult. Public opinion is a problem because we're always running up against people who do not want to see multi-unit housing. The aesthetics of multi-unit, we definitely can address, perhaps through zoning, perhaps other means, but that will address some of the public opinion problems. But the parking is still going to be an issue, is that, if we have small lots, multi-unit housing on the lot, and then the rest of the lot has to be paved over for parking, and you lose all the lawn and all the greenery, it doesn't look too good. So I wouldn't want to live there either. but I think that these are the things that we can put our heads together and try to come up with good options. So Some of the progress we made recently is, that in town meeting of this year, we approved the accessory dwelling unit zoning change. That was a small step, a very small step, but a good one in terms of making certain housing a little bit more affordable for people here. And I think on our to-do list for sometime in the next couple of years is multi-unit conversions of single-family homes. So that's something to consider. And there's a glossary, and after I update the percentage for the subsidized housing inventory, I will send this out, or John will send it out. And then a bunch of websites that Sundar used for research, and a few things that I found. So that's it. Anyone have questions or comments for us? I've bored y'all to death.
Through the chair, I sort of a comment about what you were talking about at the very end about maybe changing some of the single family homes to multiple units or high density housing. I think, in my opinion, the biggest problem people are going to have with that is that the schools are already overcrowded. And until something happens with the schools, I don't think you can propose a popular idea of adding more units, especially high density units. Because I feel like in a town like Hopkinton, it's going to attract people with children because they're going to want to come here for the schools.
Yep.
I mean, I'm all for it if the schools were bigger and didn't have this problem. I just, I see my kids haven't even really started school yet, and they're already talking about cutting programs and overcrowding. And I'm like, oh my God, should I move?
It's definitely a challenge. All right.
If I may, through the chair, well, I don't know if we're going through the chair, but because it's more of an open discussion. But no, but we really do have to look at affordable housing, because Hopkinton is unaffordable for so many people, and we all keep talking about diversity. Diversity of income is a big thing. And as people are always worried about the schools getting crowded. But we outgrow our schools all the time already. Anyway, we're gonna have to build new schools already. We all know that. We're already talking about a new Elmwood school. We didn't build the Marathon school big enough. Before we even built it, we knew we had to add 4 classrooms. So. Just because, it may not look good right now, we should be progressive enough to make sure that if space does become available downtown or space, it becomes available for us to put some more affordable housing in, so that we're not behind the, it's 2030 is only 8 years away. And, we don't want to scramble at the last minute, because as Mary will attest to. Oh no, Mary wasn't on when we didn't have, may not have been on. One of the things that always happened to the planning board was somebody would come up with a 3-acre lot, and they would say, well, we're going to put 15 units on it. We're going to call them 40B. If you don't let me do it, I'm going to do it in 40B. And then we'd have to make a compromise and say, okay, fine, we just put 5. And don't squeeze it in there, and that's one of the things that all of the that many of the developers would do to us and threaten the 40B stuff, and then we don't want to we want to look at this while we still have 8 years to go, and figure out where we can afford to put where we can afford to do affordable, where we have the space and the as you know, the parking requirements, everything else that we can work in. But it's something we really have to look at, not just look at it myopically and just say, look, the schools are crowded and everybody, people will be against it just because of the schools, because it's a much bigger thing. We have to open up our town for more than the people that can afford, anywhere from a 3 to 5 or 9 or 10,000 square foot house.
I have a question though. If you did conversions of single family homes, you would potentially create a zoning law saying, like, if you live in the downtown area, your property can be zoned or rezoned for multifamily use, right? So the person who still owns that house, they're not just going to bulldoze their house.
No, you just have to go to the you have to just go to the ZBA and say that you want to change your one family. You can go up to, I think I don't know if John, correct me, I think we can go up to 4, but they all have to be at least 600 square feet. So you can just go to ZBA and it's probably 1 or 2 meetings.
So from a
question
zoning
was,
board
it's not gonna-
perspective,
It's not
if
going
we
to
were
happen
to
overnight.
put
Yeah.
right, but if we were to put something in place, we would sort of just create a zoning law or change a bylaw that certain areas can just automatically be multi-unit, or how would you propose that? Where would you start? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, yeah, we would have to break out the bylaw that we have already and
Okay.
see. Yeah, we've discussed this actually a little bit before you were on. You were back on. So one thing is making the conversions to a multi-unit rental property, make it easier. Make it so there's not quite as many things that they have to qualify for to make that happen. It wouldn't, it wouldn't create huge number of apartment buildings downtown like overnight, as you were saying. It's going to happen slowly over time. That certain things, certain people would consider doing that with certain buildings, but it's not going to happen overnight.
My next question. Oh, I just had another follow-up question to that though. How would you control it to keep it attainable? Because we were looking at moving, so I've been paying a lot of attention to real estate. And I've seen townhouses in town that are going for like $700,000. That's not a starter home. And that's a townhouse. So that already is sort of like.
Well, you're making my
unattainable, right? Unattainable.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's actually the point right
but
there.
how do you control it? Because from a zoning point, I don't think we could put caps on. You can't tell someone how much they can sell their property for. Would the town have to own it?
It's making smaller houses. It's sort of like there are areas near the downtown where somebody might have 2 or 3 or 4 acres, and instead of saying that there's 15,000 square foot lots required, to require if you're going to do affordable housing, you only have to have a 5,000 square foot lot, and then you put up a 1,100 square foot or 800 square foot apartments coming in that area where you do it's coming more into micro zoning.
Okay.
And that kind of stuff. The chances that many people are going to break up their 900 or 1.2 or 1.5 million dollar houses into four rental units is remote. But it's and it's just something that to have Mary talking about this. It's important for us to start talking about it and really thinking about it. This is probably one of the things that we should look at for the rest of the year to make sure that we get this right. It's more important than a lighting bylaw or the sign bylaw. This really affects people's lives.
Through the chair. To answer one of Elise's comments or questions, I guess, the B district, the business district, and the downtown business district have provisions in them that from a granting of a special permit by the Board of Appeals for single and multifamily residences and buildings used for dwelling purposes provided, however, that all residential uses shall comply with the dimensional requirements contained in Article 2 Residence A District. So you can do a multifamily development in the B or BD district through a special permit of the Board of Appeals already.
Yeah, I was just wondering sort of how you would get the process started. Like, what do you even start with?
I mean, it's going to be,
No,
like
not the
any
Board
other-
of Appeals, like Mary's proposal on the paper. How do you even get something like that started? But I guess it would, like she already answered, it would start by just changing the bylaws, making it a little easier,
Or creating new bylaws.
or
Right.
creating new. Yeah.
And then to answer your other question of how do you ensure that starter homes and more affordable housing is in place? I mean, you don't ensure that. It's a market-based thing. The only way you can encourage that is by creating more housing. And one of the things I've said in my town over here and elsewhere, it's a regional thing. You can't, Hopkinton alone can't do it, because if they create all this housing, people are going to move to Hopkinton. It's going to still be expensive. But one way to do it is utilizing the same type of thing that already exists in downtown Hopkinton and downtown Westboro and downtown every town in Massachusetts. They have small lots. Use that dimensional framework as a downtown residential district or a traditional New England type of development. You know, you have lots that are 5,000 square feet in downtown Hopkinton. That's not allowed right now. Those are non-conforming lots, but they exist. People like them. They're smaller homes, but they are desirable houses that people like. And so you can do that. It's just, if Hopkinton's the only one creating that, then they're going to be bought up and it's going to remain expensive. But if other towns around the area start doing that, then eventually you'll have more equilibrium in the demand versus supply equation. But you know, it's always going to be catch up, because there's always going to be people moving into Massachusetts and in these desirable communities, or making other communities desirable and giving them funding for schools so that their schools are just as good or close to Hopkinton, and then people don't move here.
Okay.
Out of the box.
Curtis?
Okay, is that are we done with our presentation? Sorry, I disappeared for a little while.
No, no
My
problem.
laptop decided not to come back to video again, so
Oh.
back to the tablet. I guess our last agenda item is approval of the October 6th meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments, corrections, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve as prepared.
So move.
Second.
Okay, a roll call. John,
Yes.
Ted's not with us anymore. Elise,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Sundar,
Sundar Sivaraman, yes.
Madhu,
Yes.
Mary,
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
and Curtis is a yes. So I guess, let's see, we have to have a motion to end our meeting.
May I ask through the chair, when is our next meeting?
November 2nd. Was that what was on the?
No, November 8th, I think.
November 8th.
Hey, that's right.
Yes.
Because we somehow managed to hit the 2 days I'm going to be in the airport for November. Yeah, it's the 8th and the 22nd, I believe, were the for the next two.
So you're missing the next meeting, is that right? The next two meetings?
I may be able to attend depending on whether the internet and our place in Arkansas works or not.
Okay.
So Sundar's in charge.
Cinder's in charge.
Yeah, I'll be back in Florida, but I'll pick up with a nice background.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Do you know, I'm sorry, do you know offhand what you're going to have for the agenda for next time?
Dimensional and use tables.
Yes.
Outside of
Easy
that,
one.
I am not sure
Okay.
what else we have. If it turns out there's not anything else, then we could maybe combine. Maybe we could take a look at if there's not enough to have a full meeting, we could hold off on the zoning and use tables to a later meeting. But I'll talk with John and kind of go through the list and see what else we might have to bring up.
Okay.
But at this point, I think those are the two items that would be taken up at the next meeting.
Okay, then in that case, I'll second the motion to adjourn.
Okay. Roll call, John?
Oh, hold on. There
Yes.
was no first. I didn't get a first.
Oh.
Then I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, now we'll do the roll call. John?
Yes.
Elise?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Sindar?
Raman, yes.
Madhu?
Yes.
Mary?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
And Curtis says a yes. I guess we've successfully completed another meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
You
you.
want to
Thanks.
you can start impeachment whenever you want to. So.
You wish.